This is Laisha Canner. She is going to talk to you guys about how she uses Calm. This is the new class. I'm going to let you see some of them.
Hello.
Yeah. All right. Laisha, how do we
All
use
right.
Calm?
Okay. So let's see. I was going to talk about how, so the other day I got a new patient call, and actually it might be better if I look at you, Shannon, because I need someone to talk to.
Okay.
So the other day I got a new patient, and she left me a voicemail, and she had, she spoke Spanish with broken English, so it was a little hard to understand her, and she was upset. And she told me that she was referred to me by her chiropractor, and she thought that maybe I could help her. And so I called her back and told her, hi, I'm Laisha, the acupuncturist, I'm calling you back. And I said, you thought maybe I'd be able to help you. That's literally what I said. You thought maybe I'd be able to help you. And she was like, yes. And she went into this whole thing about how she just had a doctor's visit after not being for several years, and they told her she had some cancer. And but she wasn't really sure. She wasn't really clear about what was happening, like what they were telling her. So we proceeded to talk a little bit, and I said, okay, come in. And when she came in, she got a call from the doctor and had to take it because she was right at the beginning of exploring her health and finding out some new information that was really scary, and she didn't really understand it. And so she spent time talking to the doctor, so I kind of got to listen. And this is the approach of trying to hear what's happening with this person outside of any symptoms that's going on with them, but just like, what state are they in? Like, how are they seeing their health? How are they seeing your role? How are they seeing what disease they might have? Like, what is their whole perspective? Because that's the frame that they're seeing the world through, that you're going to have to try to communicate to them through their lens. It's not just, I do Chinese medicine and these are my Chinese medicine terms. This is how I understand you from Chinese medicine terms. It's like, who are you, and what is this body and this person that is this disease process is happening to? So when she came in to my office, I told her that I was going to take her pulse first. So the way that we learn this system, you get a lot of information from the pulse. And one approach is to take the pulse first before you really know anything going on with the person, so that you get like an objective overview, but at the same time you get informed about a lot of aspects of their physiology. And when you learn the psychology, the dragon rises, red bird flies psychology, then you can correlate what tendencies the person will have towards dealing with fear and love and a variety of things, but mostly the fear category, because when people are coming to see you, for the most part, they're afraid that something's wrong with them, because it probably is, which is why they're coming to see you. And so your job is to kind of figure out why, like, what level this fear is at, and how founded it is in their root, like their adrenals, their kidneys, their ability to actually grow and develop in the world and recover from illness and deal with stress. So I decided to take her pulse first because she seemed very chaotic. Like, she had a lot of information coming at her. She was trying to process it all, and the chance that I would be able to even make sense out of any of that for her in an easy, efficient way felt really daunting and maybe impossible. So I figured by feeling her pulse first, then I would get some really solid information about her terrain. So I took her pulse, and the one thing that I told her was that the whole right side just felt really suppressed, like something was holding her back or holding her down in some way, which is a waveform that we look for in the pulse. And it's not common necessarily to find it just on one side, but it was clearly much different than the left side. So, without like a really in-depth interpretation of every quality in her pulse, or, and I've been doing this a long time, so I do get put together information pretty quickly about what I'm feeling, but that's what stood out to me as being something happening to the whole pulse that might be important. So I said that to her, and it triggered like she said, "Oh, yes, I know what that is." And she told me a whole story relating to why she thinks she has cancer, being from her past and being sexually abused for years and years and years. And then, her behavior after that kind of abuse was also unhealthy. And so she felt guilty about things that she had done. And so we went into the rest of the discussion just being like, opening up about all of that, and the fact that she really related that to why she has developed cancer. So in terms of developing a rapport with the patient and kind of like directly really getting to the root of what she's going through and what she was really holding deep close to her heart and her mind about where she was at and what her struggles are, it came out just from going to the pulse right away. So that was what I wanted to share with you about the patient, is taking the pulse first. Is there any questions about that? Because I have another story.
Did you ask her what, was it cervical cancer? What kind of
They want to know if it was cervical cancer.
So, I'm not sure. I think so because she wasn't sure, and I think so because she had the LEAP procedure, and then they said that it was cancer. But also a side note, the report said cancer, and in her country, the diagnosis is either cancer malign or cancer benign. And so she was like, it says cancer, but I still don't know which one it is. Is it malign or benign? So I was like, well, I'm not an expert in this, but I think here either it says cancer or it doesn't. It just says benign or cancer. So she didn't even know until she came in that it was definitely cancer what was found.
No.
So as far as even just like, what can I do for this person? I felt like helping her sort out her information, helping her understand that it is just the beginning and maybe the surgery they're recommending is the best option. Like that is something that that comes to us as practitioners, is people looking for an alternate to diseases that are not handled very well with just alternative medicine, and to like be able to honestly and support their process of what information they're getting and understanding it and then applying it to like the best outcome is something that's important that we have to do. Anything else?
Any other questions on that story?
I do have a statement on that. It's really unique how she said it's the right side, because the right side is anything but mother and child. So that's why I asked if it was cervical cancer, because the right side, when she was abused, that's her past. And when she's abused, it relates to a partner, a person in their life, a coworker, it should have been an enemy, anything like that's on the right side. So it's interesting when she said when she did the polls, she felt it on the right side. It all connected. So.
And the right side is the earth element, which is your nurture and your connection to your mother.
And it got
destroyed. Yeah, nourishment and your mother. But it's also the kidney yang, which is your essence and your ability to recover from illness and your inherited strength and your lungs, ability to deal with grief and letting go. Yeah. Anything else about that? She has an appointment. She had an appointment on Wednesday for her follow-up, but she had to cancel, and in a very similarly chaotic way of not really knowing what was. Like, I think I have an appointment, but I have to cancel. I have a doctor's visit, But she is really right at the beginning of a very intense and scary process. So I called her back, but it's a landline too. Like, she doesn't have her mobile phone, which makes things more. She's just like a complicated picture, the whole thing. But I'll try to keep up with her. And I didn't even do a treatment. That's the other thing, is we don't always do treatments on the first visit, and you don't really know until you're talking to the person if you're going to get a treatment in. And I felt like part of my job was definitely helping her sort everything out and figure out what was going on. And then she told me her very important story, which now I know, and she knows that I know, and it's out. And so the work can go from there. Because also when somebody has started to develop cancer that they know about, our job is to look for signs of chaos and instability in their physiology, because the more chaotic things appear, the less it'll be harder for them to heal. So our job is to discover the levels of chaos, to try to find the roots of the chaos, and start to help harmonize things with treatments and herbs and lifestyle and etc. Okay, so I had this other patient come over the pandemic who had a shoulder injury that just appeared from repetitive use, and had been doing PT for like 6 months and wasn't getting better. And he was very kind of animated and a little anxious, and had a lot of information about what he'd been through. And the way that his intake went, like, we had dialogue on texting before he came in, and he was one of these people who I ended up taking the pulse for like a minute at the end of the session, because everything that he was talking about was so clearly related to his underlying approach to life, being around fear and avoiding being weak, avoiding feeling his genetic inherited kidney yang deficiency, because he was in the pandemic, and he couldn't work, and in his work he felt powerful because he was a performer, and he loved to be in front of the audience and get the energy from the audience. So he started telling me, like, well, I can't do this, and all of the things that we ended up talking about that he is missing were all related to him trying to overcompensate for feeling weak, and really having this inherited weakness in his life. And his appearance was thin and sort of sunken eyes, like more of a less nourished kind of person. But it included performing and seeming great and powerful, riding his motorcycle, lifting weights to feel big and strong, like living his best life, afraid. So it was like all of these things. And I used the Chinese psychology that we learn with Dragon Rise Red Bird Flies, like to respond to what he was talking about. So because he would talk about lifting weights, I would say, oh, that makes you feel strong. And he would be like, yeah, I just love to get in there. Like, you know, like it, acting out the strength that he was feeding off of from doing those activities. So, and the reason why it was so important is because he was not healing from this injury, that it didn't really even suddenly occur. It was like a gradual deterioration. So, and you're kind of wondering, like, well, what is actually going on with this person who has an injury, has received PT, like he's actively taking care of it, but there's something else keeping him from healing. And his approach to even coming to see me is like, can you fix me? I am fed up with this. I'm sick of it. I'm ready to feel better. Really, like, what can you do for me? Which is like this sort of like rapid, save me kind of approach. And that's not really our job. It's not really what we do. You know, it's not really helping people when we do that. So, and I'm always wary, like, what else do they do in their lives that is a similar kind of avoidance of their underlying strengths or weaknesses. Okay, so after talking for a long time, and I was really forming this whole idea about the kidney and the water element and this underlying weakness, he said, oh yeah, I have some undiagnosed kidney disease, and so does my dad, but he's way worse than me. And you know, when we would talk about the motorcycle riding and it being dangerous or whatever, he's like, oh, well, my dad, usually what my dad does, like he's gauging his whole entire approach to life off of his dad, who's way more risk-taking and way more like burning the candle at both ends. But he has developed this whole approach to life because of his inherent sense that he's not going to live a long life. Like he did end up saying that. So he's trying to make the most of his life, get the most out of it. And then so I was like, okay, well, something's going to be up in his pulse with his kidneys. I don't know what. And I was like, let me just feel. Right before we do the treatment, let me just feel for a minute. And so what the pulse showed was this empty quality, which is a pretty advanced state of burning the candle at both ends. Like the chi is raised up, the yin is not able to anchor it because it's depleted. And so at 40 years old, he has progressed, like the aging has progressed, and his sort of like fight to live his best life is like he's getting exhausted from it and then not able to heal from this injury. So I ended up actually thinking that he needed more evaluations for his shoulder. I sent him to a chiropractor who does exercise. They're like more focused on evaluating injuries from exercise and things. And so he got a better diagnosis for his actual shoulder and on a direction of exercises that were more specific to him. And I did treat him, did cupping, but it wasn't entirely in my hands. Like, again, it was like he needed to get a very specific evaluation for his shoulder that I can't do. And so he had to work with somebody else, like somebody in that field. And but I told him, if you want to work on that kidney disease, then I can do that with you with herbal medicine, and we can look at like a plan that would last over time of how to manage that. And he would get in touch with me about how he was doing. He came in for another treatment, but really he just started feeling so much better that he was back into his life. He was like catapulted back into his life, and the problem was no longer an imminent problem. And so he's not coming back to work on his kidney problem that he knows that he has, that he doesn't know what it is. But if you like slowed down for a minute while you're talking, you'd be like, yeah, I really need to figure out what that is. I need to go back, I need to get the right, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you should figure out what that is. You should do that, you know. But I don't know, I should check in with them.
Yeah.
But so that's an example of how you can get a lot of information from talking to somebody and almost predict what the pulse is gonna feel like.
Does anybody have any questions about that?
I do actually.
Okay.
When she said before doing anything, she just felt, did she mean like feel physically on the person or just internally, like she intrinsically felt?
Did you hear that, Laisha?
No.
Okay. She explained, she was asking that, do you want to come up and ask her? Like, because I'm not quite sure about your question. Hold on there.
I will try.
Yeah.
Good morning. So my question was, hi, you mentioned that before you did anything, you said you just waited and you felt. So I'm asking, did you physically touch that person, that client, or excuse me, or did you actually feel inside of you? Which field were you referring to?
Oh. Which part of my story was that? Was the pulse?
I believe it was right before you did pulse, you said you just sat there to feel. So did you mean feel him specifically? Or just feel?
Yeah, I meant his pulse, yeah.
Oh,
I meant his pulse.
Oh, that's.
Yeah.
I'm like, how
Just
did
to
she
feel for a minute. Sorry, yeah, because when we feel the pulse, it's, we spend like 40 minutes. You know, like when you say feel the pulse, it's like, you go to every depth and you feel the wave, you like break it down. And I was saying, I'm just gonna put my hands on the pulse and feel it for more like first impressions and what is like a uniform quality to the pulse to see what I get from that and see how it matches up to what he was saying. And because it was empty, it gave me a lot of information about his overall physiology being very depleted and very surface. He's kind of in a permanent fight or flight mode. But yeah, I mean, definitely there's a lot of feeling, like how I'm feeling inside is part of what you learn is really helpful to learn in school, is like, what am I feeling that's coming from them, or a reaction to what they're saying that's me, or what is just me. Is sorting that out is really, it takes time, but is really helpful and important. And the pulse can really help you to kind of determine, you know, like the more objective you interpret the findings. You say, well, I know what this means. But when you're feeling, you're not always feeling what they're feeling. Or maybe you're feeling what they're feeling, they don't even know they're feeling it because they're not as in touch with how they feel. So yeah, that's a bigger discussion.
Yeah. We were just talking about awareness before you got on there, so it's perfect. It adds right in.
Yes, awareness, totally.
Yeah.
Big.
Any other questions for Laisha before we let her go about her day?
Did you ask her if it's the right shoulder?
Was it the right shoulder or the left shoulder?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the right shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was also the guitar playing shoulder. What?
I said he did it all, didn't he?
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very impressive. And two, the question you have to ask yourself with a patient like that is, am I going to try and steal their thunder? I mean, I don't know how long they have to live. Maybe they should just live their best life. Like, I don't know that. I'm not going to like sit there and try and freak them out that they shouldn't be burning the candle at both ends, but you can say, well, this is probably related to this. You know, this symptom you're having is probably related to the condition of your terrain, like the condition of your body. But yeah, just put that out there in the end. Let them live their best life.
Let them burn their candle. All right.
Let them burn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Laisha. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Yeah.
guys can go ahead and go on a break, come back in 10 minutes.